Welcome to Love Liaisons, the ultimate deep dive into the highs and lows and hilarities of modern relationships. I'm Kathryn.
And I'm Marina, and we'll be your love liaisons. So pour yourself a nice glass of wine
Or a hot cup of tea.
and let's dive in.
Perfect.
So today, we're going to be kicking off a series that's called This Is Why I'm Single, and we're going to talk about dating disasters. So it's time to really pull back the curtain and expose the hilarious and even tragic dating disasters that make us say, never again for this one. But before we get to that, I'm curious, Kathryn, what tea are you drinking today to get yourself through this topic?
So I'm so glad you asked, and I'm going to have a sip of this black tea. And the reason I decided to pour myself some black tea is because sometimes I feel like when I go out on these dates, I'm completely in the dark. And that's not fun. So that's why I'm drinking black tea. So what do you have there, Marina? What are you drinking today?
Well, I'm having a mug of really nice wine called The Prisoner. And if you're familiar with this, it's got an etching of Spanish artist Francisco Goya's Prisoner with the subtitle translated to "The custody is as barbaric as the crime." And I have to tell you, some of these dating disasters are pretty criminal. So I think that this is a fitting wine for tonight's topic.
Definitely. And I'm sure you have some amazing stories, as we all do. And so we're going to dive right in and get into those stories and start our Love Liaisons episode today.
Wow. Well, where do I even begin talking about dating disasters? I've told you this story a couple of times. So let's start with this military guy that I dated a couple of years ago. Very fit, good-looking guy, definitely attractive. One of my love languages is physical touch. And this guy was very affectionate and touchy, which is nice. I like that. I want to feel that I'm attracted to somebody and that they're attracted to me. But the dating disaster that we had, and this wasn't our first date, maybe a second or third date, but definitely we weren't at a serious level yet. But he wanted to go see a movie with me, and he took me to go see Oppenheimer. So that's when Oppenheimer was playing a couple of years ago. And we went to that really nice movie theater, The Lot. So beautiful theater and great movie. It's a great movie. But this man wanted to make out during practically the whole movie. He wanted to make out during Oppenheimer. And I'm all into physical touch, but not while we're brooding over the world's destruction. It was really not setting the mood for me. We're talking about nuking the whole world and the whole philosophical end of humanity, potentially. And this guy just wants to kiss on my neck. So it was really quite a disaster.
It sounds like he really wasn't into the movie. He was more into getting physical with you. Let's get physical. Come on, everybody get physical. Okay, I won't do that.
Definitely. Believe it or not, I still gave him a chance after that. And it was clear that all he wanted to do was get physical. And of course, I'm flattered, but I was looking for much more of a deeper connection.
Listening to that, I feel being single provides a lot of different scenarios, but it's less about not meeting the right person and more about surviving the wrong ones at times. And it shouldn't be like that. It should be positive. You're having fun. You're meeting people. You're getting out. But unfortunately, in this day and age, it's just trying to get through the date the best you can. I have some interesting stories more with dating. I remember going on this one date with this gentleman, and it was really sweet that he decided to show up. But he had just come from the gym, completely sweaty, taking the napkin, taking the sweat off of his forehead, and just completely turned off. He could have said, hey, give me an hour. Do you mind? Plus, he was 10 minutes late. I'm, for the most part, a very punctual person. He didn't text me saying that he was running late. So it just didn't start off right. He just went to the gym, which I love that he worked out. But you don't show up, especially to a first date, sweating and not smelling good. One of my exes always told me, I love your pheromones. He was obsessed with my pheromones. And same thing, if I smell you and you smell bad, I don't know if I want a second date. They always say give the person two chances, but it's just not starting the date off right. Have you ever gone on a date like that where you're just smelling him and it's a complete turnoff?
Yeah, it sounds like the guy was definitely running. He was running late, but he was definitely running. But it depends on the person. There have been some people where I really like their pheromones. And so even if they are sweaty from the gym, it really doesn't matter. It's still a turn on. But there's definitely times when people have overdone it. That reminds me, I actually have a story. Speaking of guys that like to work out, this was last year. I was dating somebody from out of town and also very fit and great guy. We met dancing. He lives out of town, but he was just visiting here. And so he wanted to visit me for my birthday. And everything was great. He ended up actually ruining my birthday because I didn't know that he had like a serious back injury and sciatica because he seemed so super fit. And so in the morning, telling me it's hard for me to walk a little. And then we're back at my place having a good time. We were supposed to go to Seneca for a really nice dinner for my birthday. He goes to take a shower and lays down and he can't get up. He's just like calling to me saying, I can't move. I pulled my back. He really pulled his back so bad. We were unable to go at all to dinner. I spent my birthday dinner trying to get a chiropractic appointment for him. And by the time I got him to the chiropractor, they had already closed. So we went to a therapeutic massage. So basically, I spent my birthday getting this man a therapeutic massage to fix his back that he blew out.
What a good girl, not being selfish. It's your birthday. He wasn't doing well. He probably should have mentioned something about that or just said, hey, I don't think I can do this hike.
He was trying to be a trooper. He was trying to be a soldier. It ended up ruining my birthday.
I'm sorry to hear that. Speaking of interesting scenarios, so this is actually pretty funny. I was seeing this person and was set up by this individual by a mutual friend. I think it's really important that you know what your friends think of you before they're setting you up with someone, because afterwards we're sitting at the dinner table and I said something to him. I don't want to do that. I want to do this. And he looks at me, he says, you know, our friend, I'm not going to mention her name, our friend so-and-so told me that you were submissive. And I'm looking at him like, what? Submissive? Why would she say that? And so it ended up being a big joke because he says, she promised me a submissive girlfriend. So you better be submissive. This is not what I signed up for. I didn't buy into this. And so we would laugh about it. But it goes back to, it's interesting what people think. And when I asked her, she was like, oh, well, yeah, sometimes you do just kind of go along with the flow. And I realized that in a lot of my relationships, when men are pursuing me, I just kind of go for it instead of thinking, wait a minute, is this the right person for me? Let me look at all of this. What are my core values? And so it's something to think about moving forward. I can't do that and maybe be less submissive.
Wow. I don't see you as submissive at all. Like, in fact, I see you as really being, we're not supposed to use like any bad word as a boss bee. You're definitely not submissive, but it's interesting that other people would see you that way.
Maybe because I'm always helpful, but you mentioned boss bee. Isn't there a song that talks about that? I don't know if we can sing that because that is a bad word, but my sister sometimes would play that and I'm thinking, oh, this is so dysfunctional. But then I don't want to sound like this prude older sister either. It's so interesting. And I think people need to go back and ask their friends or family or what have you, what are the 5 words that you would use to describe me, and explain why, because it gives you an opportunity to really think, okay, that doesn't mean that you're going to change or anything like that, but to look within yourself and say, is this how I want to represent myself? And are there things that I can work on? Feedback is so important. And we just need to realize these people still love you. So when they're giving you feedback, try not to take it too personally.
Well, one thing that I do take personally is if I'm left hungry. Like I said, I was upset when I didn't get to go to this nice dinner on my birthday, but there was yet another incident. We had this guy as a guest, my friend Gideon. As I mentioned, we had dated before. And one time, this was during the COVID time when we were in Colorado. and he had invited me over and said he was going to get something to eat. He knew I'm a vegetarian. I tell people all the time. Back then, like the whole Netflix and dinner was like actually the norm for a date because people weren't going out so much unless you wanted to go hiking or something like that. So we were going to watch some movie and he went to a wings place. And most places have a veggie burger, or now they have buffalo cauliflower wings. So this man brings me back a bag of celery. He gets himself an order of wings and he's said, "You're a vegetarian." So he brings me the side of celery and ranch that goes with the wings. Do you think I'm a rabbit? Oh my God.
My question to you is, did it fill you up, all those celery sticks?
I ended up eating his kids' chips and fruit snacks, some sort of spaghetti.
But I bet he felt bad. And that's the thing. We don't know. Well, we don't know. I would think if somebody told me they're vegetarian, I wouldn't get celery sticks. And he did think of you, but he probably should have called and said, "Hey, where can I go to get you a beautiful salad or something like that?" But that's sweet. I'm sure he didn't do that again.
No, no, but it was just like so shocking to me. We're in Colorado in 2020. Anywhere you throw a rock, you'd hit a vegetarian. So it wasn't anything unusual. It wasn't the only food or drink related issue I had. I remember going way back, and I was 20 years old. I studied abroad in Moscow. We're actually having a reunion of our study abroad program. Almost 30 years ago, when I studied abroad in Moscow, I actually met a Russian guy named Sergey, like Sergio, but in Russian, Sergey. We started dating, and one time, I remember he invited me to his place. He lived, it was like a live work studio place. He was a artist. He did sculptures. And I had just gone on a trip to Estonia and brought him back a bottle of vodka. He asked me to bring him a bottle of vodka from Estonia. So I did. We were playing a card game and having some shots. And it was like some kind of a drinking card game that we were just playing against each other. He wasn't a little guy. He was way bigger than me and a couple of years older too. So we're going on. And I thought, oh, we're going to have a fun night. Maybe we'll have a romantic night. And halfway through the card game, he just excuses himself and goes to the bathroom. And I'm thinking, ooh, maybe he's going to slip into something a little more comfortable. And then a minute later, I hear, blah. The poor man got sick. I literally drank a Russian adult under the table in a drinking card game with Estonian vodka as a 20-year-old. This is how good my liver used to be.
They're so yummy, your stories. This is reality. You mentioned you like to eat. I'm definitely a foodie, and that's one way to my heart. If someone knows how to pick a fun restaurant, and I've had so many experiences where I remember this one gentleman, and he was so sweet, but he kept asking me, "Where do you want to go eat? What do you want to eat?" And I just said, "Oh, Mediterranean." Now, you would think most people know what Mediterranean is, okay? Apparently, he did not. So on our first date, and it was super sweet, he takes me to this really expensive restaurant downtown, and I'm looking at the restaurant. I'm thinking, this is not Mediterranean. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I hope we're not going Dutch. He said, "I want to let you know, you said Mediterranean," and I didn't want to seem uneducated about what Mediterranean is. And so he picked like some steakhouse. So not Mediterranean, but it was really sweet. And he was so nervous. And so I always try to talk and all of that. Speaking of talking, this is really funny. I'm sure most people know by now I am a talker. That's what I do for a living. I help students all day long and listen to their stories. But I had gone out on this date with this gentleman, and he was very quiet. You mentioned, Marina, a lot that you're an introvert. This gentleman must have been an introvert, because I'm thinking to myself, I feel like I'm asking him all of the questions. Why is he not asking me a return question? So if I say, for example, "What do you do for fun?" the response should be answering it and then ask me, "So what do you do for fun?" And he would just answer my question and not ask me back. So I was getting like a little perturbed by that. And then as the night progressed, he says, "I gotta tell you something." And I was so thankful that he communicated this to me, because I was getting like, he must not really be interested. He says, "I have to tell you," he says, "you're making this date really, really easy for me." And I said, "I beg your pardon?" And he says, "Well, you're pretty much doing all the talking for the both of us, so I don't need to think about what to say." And I just had to laugh. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this whole time I was thinking that you just don't really like me because you're not asking me the same question back. And so this goes back to make sure you're communicating, having fun with it. But it was so funny that how we saw it both different ways. And the fact that I pretty much controlled the conversation.
Speaking of that, that really reminds me of some of the best dating disaster stories are not my own, but others that people have shared with me. I had a older colleague that I used to work with that's probably retired now, was divorced, had adult children, was trying to get out there, over 60, but still going strong, wanted to get out there and date. And he shared really one of the most outrageous dating disaster true stories that I've ever heard. This man was a really interesting professional in the helping field. And then he also liked to write screenplays, write literature as well, and like to talk about it. He was a really interesting person that as a colleague, I loved having conversations with him. So I was shocked when he told me this story that he invited a lady out on a date and he picked her up. They drove to Coronado for a nice high-end restaurant. And he was talking in his usual fashion about all of his interests and his writing and the new script he's working on and all these stories. And then he paused for a second to reflect and said, I hope I'm not talking too much about myself. I hope I'm not scaring you off. And she ended up excusing herself to go to the bathroom and never came back. He was
Wow.
he was sitting in such a way where he could see the hostess, he could see the front door. So he's like, she didn't go out the front door. Did she jump out a window of the bathroom? And he actually was concerned because over a certain age, people could just have a heart attack or a stroke. Nobody was in the women's bathroom. So she literally must have jumped out the window of the women's bathroom or gone out the back door through the kitchen, like gone out the back, Jack, just to get away from listening to his stories. And I mean, my heart really went out to him because I thought he was an interesting guy. And one of the things that he said was, what? If she just came and said to me, listen here, Jack, I can't listen to another word. I just want to eat my meal. He would have said, okay, no problem. Let's eat our meals and I'll drive you home and we'll call it a night.
I've never done that. If I'm really just at a point where I literally cannot stand it anymore, I will just tell the person, hey, I think you're interesting in your own right, but this is just not working. Or I'd say, can we change the subject? But to leave someone, I think it's so disrespectful. And would you want someone to do that to you? What goes around comes around. To just leave someone on a date and it's a nice restaurant, poor guy. It's so mean. And then what if she runs into him or starts dating someone he knows, and then no one's going to want to date her. The community is so small because they're going to say, oh, she's just going to leave you on the date. So this goes back to communication. And I think you were talking to me about this whole business that's come about with telling people or showing people the right way to text individuals.
I was surprised you hadn't seen it yet. I get ad after ad on social media about how to make a man desire you, how to text a man, how to text him so that he's uncontrollably in love with you and misses you. And it really makes me feel a certain way. I feel it's really unauthentic, but there is some truth to it. We talked about before how I really have a pet peeve. I do not like when men text me like these abbreviations like WYD, short for what you doing, at night or whenever through the day. And I've had like really highly educated professional men do that. And it's really a pet peeve of mine. There's this kind of a self-appointed relationship coach on social media, Derek Jackson, who talks about any woman who pays over $2,000-$3,000 of her own bills a month does not want to hear WYD, what you doing at 11, 12 at night.
So that says a lot about that individual and that it's time to move on. But yes, I think there's this gentleman, he's a psychologist. His name is Matthew Hussey, and he's very popular in the podcast world. He's always on social media, and he talks about the proper way to text somebody. And I just got to say, what did we do in the 40s and 50s? Yes, we didn't have that technology, but it seemed like people knew how to have conversations. So what's happening as the years go by, are we becoming less and less knowledgeable about communication because we have higher technology capabilities? Or I just don't understand why this is a new profession that someone can just say, okay, you need help, or you, like you said, miss a man. I think it's sad too, because it's not just communication. I think, hey, if you want to better your communicative skills, fabulous, wonderful. But to be in a spot where you're trying to figure out how to make the man miss you, you're missing what it's all about, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I find that to be really unauthentic. Like at my age, at my point in life, I want to have an authentic connection with somebody. And if I miss them, I want to say, hey, you've been out of town, or I've been out of town, or I've been really busy this past week. I miss you without thinking like some strategy, like, oh no, I can't give him the upper hand. Or it's like, look, I'm a person. I mean, I tell my friends I tell my son I miss him, you know? I just wanna be authentic without feeling like there has to be some strategy involved.
I think for me, the way I look at it, I'm delving even deeper than that. I feel like if a gentleman, and all you men out there, you're more than welcome to email us, tell me I'm wrong, what have you. I know everybody's different, but I really feel like if the man is not getting back to you within X amount of time, those actions speak far louder than any words. So if it's been a couple days and he hasn't reached out to you from the last texting that you've done, then probably more than likely he's not that interested, unless there was an emergency, a death in the family, or he's working a 48-hour shift or something. And if that's the case, why invest that energy? There's other people that you could invest that energy, or guess what? Invest that into yourself, your growth. Don't worry about the man. If he doesn't have time in a 24-hour day to get back with you, to call you, text you, move on. I don't need somebody telling me how to text, how to make him miss me. It's not the right route, and you're trying to start a relationship on the wrong foot. I fail anyways.
You know what that's called? It's called He's Just Not That Into You. There used to be a book. I think there was even like a show or something called He's Just Not That Into You. Absolutely. If a guy is into you, he could be under an avalanche, in the snow, in the Arctic, and he will send a courier penguin to go send you a message.
They will make the time. If they are making excuses, there's something else going on. You need to have a different conversation. Hey, it seems like you're not that into me. Can you give me some feedback as to why? Maybe they will, won't. I know my recent ex, he would go canyoneering. And I would always worry, because anything could happen when you go canyoneering. It's where for those of you that don't know, where you hike up a mountain, rappel down these mountains. It's very dangerous. You could die. A lot could happen. And he always makes sure he has this tracker device. Then he always makes sure to send me this message, which comes to my email. It's respect. It comes down to respect. So even if you are busy, on my busiest day, look, I have a full-time job. I'm doing this podcast, but I will still make an attempt to at least say, hey, I've had a really busy day. I know that I told you I would get back with you today, but I am exhausted. I'm not my best self. So can we please just talk another day? It's just being respectful. So where did we lose the communication, the respect, and everything under the sun that comes under that umbrella?
Speaking of respect, certainly I wanted to share a couple of more dating disaster stories that were disrespectful, where people can just be honest. One was my cousin shared with me. She went on a blind date some time ago. Somebody set her up with this guy, and they met at a coffee shop. And she's an average looking person. Like, hey, none of us are Vogue models. Maybe you, Kathryn, but whatever. Anyway,
That's right.
yeah, exactly. But anyway, she's a nice looking lady. There's nothing strange about her to warrant this kind of response. So she meets the guy at a coffee shop. He sits down, takes one look at her, and then comes up with an excuse why he has to go right away. It was so obvious that he didn't like something, or something wasn't his expectation, because this wasn't an on-call surgeon or anything. And she was just really mortified. This guy could have just sat and had a cup of coffee with me and said, you know what? You're a nice lady, but I'm just not feeling the connection. And that would have been fine. Totally fine. And I have had situations like that where I've had somebody tell me, you know what? I just didn't feel the connection with you. I didn't feel the chemistry. And you know what? That's fine. It's much better, for me at least, than ghosting somebody. Just being honest and saying, hey, it's not all there. Wish you the best. You're not the one for me. Good luck. Is that so hard?
It's interesting. I'm listening to you speak, and I think we've all been down there, unless you're some of my friends who got married on our first date. But most of us has been there, and it really makes me think about this word respect and high emotional intelligence. The people that jump out of the bathroom because they didn't like how long the person was talking. I mean, you know what? If physical is all you care about, then you need to make sure that you say that ahead of time. And that is the first thing that you do see is the physical. But I just think it's so rude. You can spend a little bit of time and with the person, and maybe they have a friend that's better for you or something like that. But be a gentleman, be a lady. I think I said this in one of the other episodes. I don't know why we're losing those values, morals. It makes it for dating disasters. I mean, I know if I spent time getting ready, and for all you men out there, bless your souls, I can't imagine that it would take you that long to get ready, although some of you do spend as much time as women. But I don't think you understand how much is involved for a woman, most women, to get ready for a date. So it's not like we just shower. Well, now we got to blow dry our hair, possibly style our hair. There's makeup. Okay, did we paint our nails? Shave our legs. A lot of men will say, oh, well, you didn't have to put on makeup. I prefer women without makeup. Well, guess what? Maybe I like wearing makeup. I like the way it makes me feel. Maybe we're not a match. So you're thinking that in your head, but for the most part, it takes us a little bit of time to get ready. Then you got to figure drive time and just all these things. And so for a guy or a young lady to just leave after 5 minutes, it's just says a lot about that person. I think I saw something on Facebook. I think we have a mutual friend, and she had posted about how important it is to men to have this physicality. And I had responded because I wasn't sure which way she was going, if she was making fun of it, but she was talking about Bezos. I don't know if you saw that from Amazon. And she was saying, look, he had this intelligent, wonderful wife, and he left her for this woman that looks like some character out of some clip or something with the fake boobs and the fake lips, and she's wearing hardly anything. And I'm thinking, my response to that is, I wouldn't want to be with that person to begin with, because if that's what he's attracted to, that he left a quality, and everybody's saying define quality, a quality woman, and we don't know what the issues were in the marriage, but based on looks, for this type of woman, what does that say about him? Don't get me started on his business practices, but I'm just saying, obviously he's not a person of integrity, and he's not a person that really cares about people at the end of the day. He cares about number one. This goes back to, you talk about this a lot, Marina, about narcissistic behavior. And I'm seeing more and more of this, what I call narcissistic tendencies in people. And at the end of the day, when a woman says to me, I'm looking for someone who's successful, and my response is, yes, that's great. But just keep in mind, most financially successful men are going to have a little bit of narcissistic tendencies. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's all how you look at it. There's many components, and you're a psychologist. You can speak more about it than I can. What are you looking for? And going back to values, and I'll get in that in a second, but I want you to respond.
Certainly, there is something called healthy narcissism. And I'm not a psychoanalyst per se, but I used to work with one that talked about the value of healthy narcissism and that there is some aspect of self-esteem to it. What I've seen are men that are completely oblivious on many levels to anything except their own wants and needs, are not taking feedback, and not even that, continue to steamroll over, gaslight, lie, manipulate for their own benefit. They're unable to take feedback and accept no for an answer. And it reminds me of This one other example of a guy I dated some years ago. Luckily, it was in the past. Really tall, good looking, athletic guy, but he was a player. He was a player. And we ended up breaking up. And I met somebody else. I met somebody who was half French. And we were already dating and going to yoga, going salsa dancing. And he happened to be staying over at my place because he lived far away. And lo and behold, the other guy started calling me. And this was like late at night. We were already in bed. I had 5 missed calls from this guy. I'm just ignoring it. I figure he's probably out downtown drinking with his brother, drinking with his boys, and wants to bother me. So I don't answer. 5 minutes later, he's knocking at my door. And then he's knocking at my window. This previous guy, he's knocking on my window, knocking on my door. I actually have to put on a bathrobe, go to the door and say, you have to go away. Like, what are you doing? You have to go away. I'm here with somebody. Why are you at my door? And he's like, oh, I just want to hang out, see if you wanted to, whatever BS he was saying. It was like no sense of reality. And I was so upset. I'm thinking, oh my God, like my new boyfriend is going to think like, I'm a liar. I'm a cheater. He's going to think like, why is there another guy involved? And so I send the other guy away. I go back to the bedroom and say, oh, I'm so sorry. And his French side totally came out. And he was like, oh, Marina, oh my God, I cannot believe you such a woman. You're so desirable. Men are knocking at your door, knocking at your window. Nobody is knocking at my window. Oh, I'm proud to have such a girlfriend. And like the next day, I have a talk with the other guy telling him this is completely unacceptable. And I actually ended up calling the new girlfriend of my ex who came knocking on my door to say, you have to put a leash on this guy. But, part of that example of some people just don't respect boundaries and limits.
I don't know if he was drunk or what the issue is, but completely selfish to think that, oh, you have nothing in your life, that you're just going to be available for him whenever he needs you. Yeah. So, and I feel bad for people that are listening to this that are fresh out of a divorce and thinking, oh, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to get back on the dating scene. And then they're listening to our episode thinking, this is what dating's like. Wonderful stories. We're just sharing these funny stories because a lot of people can relate and we just want people to think, okay, been there, done that, and that you're not alone. But I think what I was saying before is it really goes back to knowing ahead of time. Like I was talking about the friend who thought I was submissive and learning, why do I keep making the same mistakes over and over again? And finally saying, you know what? I need to set boundaries, look in the mirror more, and also understand my values. So I had gone on this site. I want to say it was Match. Even though I'm not really ready to get back out there right now, I get asked a lot, okay, are you ready? I said, no, my boyfriend and I just broke up a few months ago and really not ready. But I just got on there because I'm sure most of you out there know this gentleman. His name is Jay Shetty. He's very famous, Indian gentleman. He has a wonderful podcast. He's been on a podcast with Matthew Hussey and two wonderful men that really help a lot of people out there in the world. And he has this whole quiz. And I'm going in there going, yeah, I know my values. And they ask you a bunch of questions. And based on how I responded, it came back with a couple that I thought it would. I thought it was going to come back with saying peace, because I always say, I just want peace. I want my privacy. I want well-roundedness and to be able to be with someone that has a full life and we're just adding to each other's life. But it also said kindness. And I didn't think that was going to be one of the values, the top 3 values for me, but it came back that my top 3 values are communication, which makes sense. I like adult conversation. I like deep conversations and to communicate kindness. Okay. And then it was interesting that the last value that came up was humor. And I thought, you know what, that makes sense because I want to laugh and I have a tendency to laugh even at my own jokes, especially when I'm really tired and nobody else is laughing but me. But I'm like, okay, I'm happy, I'm laughing. So that was really interesting. Have you ever taken one of those type quizzes?
Certainly, especially personality profiles. That's where I say one of my highest scoring personality traits is actually introversion. We were thinking about what does all this mean? We're talking about funny stories of dating disasters, and certainly I've had no shortage of them. And I thank others for sharing their stories with me. What I've really learned about is what are my boundaries and how I can speak up more and be clear. Because a lot of times it's really my personality characteristics, and some of them are positive character traits like openness to new experience, being open, going with the flow. But somebody can just go with the flow down the river in another direction. And you have to stop them and say, hey, no, this isn't where I'm going with this. It's really taught me to be more open, be a little bit more outgoing, and a little bit more firm in saying, this is what's acceptable and this is what's not acceptable. I think on that note, I'd be happy to hear from our audience. I would love for people to send us
Absolutely.
stories of their dating disasters, bloopers, bums they've been out on dates with, stories on dating disasters. You could definitely like us on Facebook, Love Liaisons on Instagram, our website. Send us a message of your dating disasters.
Definitely. We want to hear from you. That's the whole point. So let us know. You can be anonymous as well. And I got to say, Marina, because you're an introvert, I would consider myself an introverted extrovert. We need to be each other's wing women when we go out because I'm going to get you out of your shell. And maybe you'll get me to shut up a little bit because I'm just the opposite. I'm the type of person that if you say, oh, he's good looking, I'm already out of my seat. I'm introducing myself and I'll say, you see my friend over there? She thought you were good looking. Why don't you come over and talk to us? Because my feeling is the worst thing he's going to say is sorry or I'm in a relationship. And so I really don't care. I have no problem going up to anyone. You could be the president of the United States and I'll literally be going through the crowd and introduce myself. This is actually a true story. And then I think we're going to wind down here this evening. But I actually introduced my sister to her husband. Of course, now they're divorced, but this is a funny story that I will share because I had met him at a birthday party and I thought, okay, he's a good looking man. And I knew my sister had gotten out of a relationship. So fast forward, long story short, I call her and I say, hey, I met this guy. He seems interesting. And I had gone up to him. He was surrounded by women. True story. And I just said, excuse me. And I introduced myself and I just said, hi, my name's Kathryn. And may I ask you how old you are? And he's looking at me like, who are you? And I said, oh, I just wanted to let you know, I don't know if you're in a relationship or not, but I have a very beautiful, wonderful sister. And he's just looking at me like, seriously, I just want to have fun tonight. And we left it alone. Well, guess what? I invite my sister to this white party. This is where everybody dresses in white and you go to an event, maybe it's on a rooftop or wherever it may be. Well, guess what? I go with my sister, and if anybody knows my sister, she's gorgeous. She has a great sense of humor. She's a catch. And she looked very good that evening, and I happened to see him there. So, of course, what do? I said, sister, that's the guy I was telling you about, but she was there with another person. So I said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. So I go up to him. Once again, he's surrounded by women. I introduce myself and say, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I met you at so-and-so's birthday party. And I said, and I mentioned my sister. Once again, he's looking down at me because he was taller than me, thinking, what in the world? And I said, see, you're preoccupied. Not to worry. I just wanted to point her out over there. And so I point her out and he looks, he goes, oh, I would date her. I said, fabulous. Well, here's her number. I think you know what to do with that. And the rest was history. And they went out, they got married. And so everybody, that's my personality.
We should go out because when I was younger, I used to go salsa dancing with a couple of friends of mine, and I would just stand next to them because they would get asked to dance all the time. And there's only one of them, and all these guys try to ask them to dance. So I would take the leftovers and dance with the leftovers. I want to go and introduce myself. I wasn't like that. I'm a little bit of a wallflower.
Marina, no, you can't do that. One of the things that really love is nature and music. And I love it. So the moment I hear a song, I'm on the dance floor and I don't care. I literally have grabbed a guy's hand and said, come dance with me. And here's the thing, if he doesn't want to dance with me, he will remove his hand. Okay, fine. And I move on. But I don't have a problem. I say, hey, you're dancing with no one. Guess what? Now you're going to dance with me. So I am like the opposite. In that sense, I would say I'm very confident. And because I'm never going to see this person again. So what do I have to lose? But Marina, no, you're not leftovers. Go for it. We're not promised tomorrow. Live your life. Okay. So on that note, I really need to take a sip of my tea.
Yeah.
So,
I'm going to have another sip of my wine here.
yes, my lovely.
So thank you everybody for listening. I hope that you follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Love Liaisons, and our website. Again, remember, send us your dating disaster stories and we could feature you in another episode or a little shout out.
So I'm going to take another sip of my tea.
And I'll have another sip of my wine. So let's keep sipping,
Keep loving.
keep laughing
Cheers for now.
from your Love Liaisons.